employment delivers equitable and transformative socioeconomic benefits for host communities through building relationships, professionalizing social performance, and fostering collaboration. We've had an opportunity to revise our strategic plan through donor funding for 2025 to 2027 and transitioned from the four pillars that we had, which was learning, knowledge, innovation, and partnerships, transitioning to 5 program areas related to building capacity, facilitating strategic collaborations, knowledge generation and sharing, piloting innovative models, as well as building advocacy and communications. Through being guided by those program areas, we are implementing several projects, including the Trust Matters project, which many of you might know, which started as an ambitious vision to strengthen community trust in South Africa's renewable energy sector. Over the years, almost 2 years, the project has grown into a dynamic movement of learning and shared purpose. So following all the activities from 2023 to 2024, including research and development, the Trust Connect workshops, the interaction with all the trust intermediaries, though that is your financiers, your legal experts, your founders, your IPPs, to find out on what are the possible support resources that can be offered to community trust in the renewable energy ecosystem. So from that, the purpose of this webinar then is to share the findings of the Trust Matters project, introduce the Trust Maturity Assessment tool, which has emerged as one of the resources from the project, as well as explore opportunities for scalable capacity building initiatives. So with that being said, I would also like to note that the webinar is recorded and will be placed into the Inspire repository, should you want to share with colleagues that couldn't join today. Before we also get to the panel, I would like to, for the presentations, I would like to introduce you to Yumna Felfere, the Senior Strategic Partner to Inspire, who will be walking us through on what is Trust Matters, what did we do, what are we learning, and later on Yumna will take us through how are we also responding and what are the opportunities for scalable capacity building. And also would like to introduce to you Ephraim Belechi, from Embedding Impact and Implementation Partner to Inspire, who will be walking us through the Trust Maturity Self-Assessment tool, highlighting the rationale, relevance, and what is it designed to assess, and how does it help us build maturity. And also Nicola, which is visible on your screens, who will be assisting with the tech side of things. As a first step, we will be playing a video of the story of origin that tracks the story of the renewable energy sector from global perspectives to local perspectives, and also explores the full spirit of community ownership. So now I will hand over to Nicola to play the video, and please feel free also to interact with the Q&A function to ask questions that panelists will be responding to. Thank you. Nicola, it would be great if you can play the video.
South Africa's past of colonization, slavery and apartheid still echoes in the inequality of today, making true transformation a pressing need. But imagine a South Africa where we find language to articulate and address these wounds so we can heal, and where a diverse group of people and communities come together to learn from each other, collaborate and build trust to realize an alternate future where access to dignity translates into equity and justice, not as an ideal, but a lived reality for all. For decades, we have witnessed the devastation of our planet, not only through historic injustices and compromise of our social fabric, but in the concurrent destruction of our natural ecosystems too, which have affected the poorest communities the most. As climate change intensifies, the global push for a just energy transition has placed renewable energy at the forefront, not just as an environmental solution, but as a pathway to enable these communities to survive and thrive. South Africa's response to this call is the REIPP, a bold and visionary program that links energy production with socio-economic development. What makes REIPP unique is its socio-economic development framework and community ownership model. Communities are not only recipients of development projects, they are shareholders in the power plants. But greater collaboration is key to achieving the full potential of renewable energy in South Africa, beyond meeting the REIPPP office requirements.
The opportunity with REIPP is to go beyond compliance and to be intentionally transformative.
The construction phase of an REIPPP project within REIPP stimulates local economies through its demand for various types of goods and services, work and skills. This phase results in substantial temporary job creation and opportunities for regional businesses. When the plant plugs into Eskom and moves into the operations phase, it generates revenue in return for the power produced. A percentage of this income is allocated to socio-economic and enterprise development, or SED and ED spend on community projects. When the plant starts turning an annual profit and when the project company declares and distributes dividends, the community trust also receives its share. From the share, the community trust needs to service the debt associated with its shareholder loan, the loan that facilitated its purchase of shareholding in the plant. The balance of these dividends can then be used to build local capacity, create opportunities and invest in community development projects. Yet making this model work in practice is complex. While community trusts often struggle to agree on how to manage their funding, which programs to implement, how to ensure governance and build trustee capacity in meaningful ways, REIPPPs also often struggle to channel their SED and ED funds appropriately to ensure tangible benefit to their communities.
When you impose projects within communities that don't address community needs, you sort of miss the mandate of what the trust is supposed to be doing.
It's best to consult, because when you do that, the resource that you bring to the community, we make sure, and the community makes sure that it keeps it safe, it uses the resource, because it's something that they needed, it's something that they asked for.
Community ownership should mean community owning their future and communities owning those decisions.
How do we make sure that communities are no longer a stakeholder to be engaged, but a stakeholder that's intrinsically part of the decision making of how we design this organization, how it will function, what value it delivers, to who and how that happens.
I think we really underestimate just how much woundedness, interpersonal conflict, difficult relationship slows down our capacity to deliver even our best intentions.
I think a lot of us as practitioners find ourselves in institutions and organizations and in spaces where we are figuring it out as we go, and there isn't a space where we can learn and know how to do it. There isn't like a proven model where somebody can just give you the template on how to do this in your community, and plus the complexity of the fact that all communities are quite different.
They need the support, they need an organization that holds them, that holds the collaboration and brings them together.
Inspire, the Initiative for Social Performance in Renewable Energy, is an NGO founded on over a decade of work in the ecosystem that has emerged around REIPP. Made up of industry practitioners, academics and government champions, Inspire's focus is to maximize the socio-economic impact that REIPP and the implementation of large-scale renewables can have as part of our energy transition. Inspire strengthens collaboration, builds capacity, and helps communities unlock the full value of their ownership.
Inspire has provided a very unique and critical platform to bridge gaps in community trust governance and capacity.
Through funding from the IDC, Inspire's Trust Matters program creates a framework for thinking about how best to optimize the value that trust can bring to communities.
We've tried to make sure that the voice of community trustees themselves have featured very strongly in how we design this program.
What are the experiences of community trusts to date? what is going really well, what might be missing to really ensure that community shareholding is meaningful.
And what we've come up with is a trust maturity framework that addresses not only the regulations of trusts, but looks at governance, looks at capacity, looks at vision and strategy, and looks at impactful delivery. So it's actually a multifaceted approach that we need to take to be able to develop community trusts.
In the spirit of learning, collaboration, and partnership, Inspire is exchanging learnings and seeking ideas from communities and practitioners around the world. A process of building a shared global vision for community ownership.
The whole purpose of the trust and the mandate of the trust is to make sure that our communities are sustainable beyond the life of mines. So when the mines start closing, we need to make sure that families have alternative income streams. Understanding that community ownership means exactly that. They own the trust.
We have come up with an idea called the Community Equity Opportunity Fund, and it is meant to support the community equity position across the life cycle of a project. We should stop thinking that communities don't have business projects or business ideas. They do. It's about coming to them and asking, what is it that they want to do in their lands?
It really is a guardianship role that we play to ensure that our trust will continue on in perpetuity. The process of understanding community need, the understanding of the dreams and aspirations of community, and answering those dreams. Prior to colonisation, Māori were thriving. They were traders, they were market gardeners, and so there's a sense of what it was prior to white men coming. We have to acknowledge that past, and that past is still hurting today. So if you could imagine if Māori never lost their land, what would they look like today? And when they lose land, they lose so much. Because you remember what was happening in New Zealand was not an isolated case, it was happening worldwide.
Though we cannot rewrite the historic injustices of humanity's past, the deep wounds borne by our ancestors and consequences that subsequent generations bear to this day, we do have an opportunity to play a part in writing a new story for generations to come. So today, let's imagine a South Africa where a strengthened and networked ecosystem in the renewable energy sector leads the charge and harnesses the energy of tomorrow to build a just, dignified, and equitable future for all.
Thank you so much, Nicola, for facilitating that. With that being said, I will hand over to Yumna to take us through on what have we learned in the Trust Matters project from the insights from the ecosystem, as well as look into the view from our learning event that we had earlier this year. Just to note that we are still in the process of finalizing the actual report from the learning event. So at this stage, we are still in the design and editing processes that will be made available to you as soon as it's complete. Thank you. Over to you, Yumna.
Thank you so much. And good morning, everybody. And thank you so much for joining our webinar this morning. And I hope you really enjoyed the video. I think many of you who were at the learning event would probably have watched the video as well. We've made a shortened version, and we'll be sharing that shortly. So please do share with your contacts and your colleagues, because this, I think, is a short one and easier to watch. And I think you can see from the video that there is so much potential in community ownership in South Africa, and we still have a long road to walk in terms of realizing that potential. And the Trust Matters project has really been about how we do realize that full potential. And we've been working on this Trust Matters project, which was explained as well in the video, since about June 2023. So that's 2 years. And in that period, we've spoken individually with trustees, with trust administrators, with social performance practitioners who've worked a lot with trusts, with people generally who are working in the social performance space in REIPP, but also in mining. And so we've learned quite a lot generally about how trusts function, but also some of the dysfunctionality of trust. And many of us who've worked on this project have ourselves either been trustees, are trust administrators, or have worked in IPPs. So there's a lot of understanding that came from that, and that we started developing this Trust Matters project on, and also how we started building up the trust maturity framework, which was explained also in the video. But then beyond that, we had Trust Connect sessions. We had 3 Trust Connect sessions in Cape Town, in the Eastern Cape, and in the Northern Cape, where we invited trustees, particularly communities trustees, to add and give us more perspectives and deepen our knowledge on community ownership in South Africa. And these were really very, very helpful. And the slide that you're seeing on the screen now, these are the insights that came from that collective knowledge. When we initially started building up the trust maturity framework, and also when we had those Trust Connect sessions. These are the insights that came from those sessions and came from those interactions. And we've organized these insights in the pillars of the trust maturity framework in terms of governance and capacity and vision and strategy and impactful delivery. And I'd like to go through them just very briefly. So under governance, for example, we've seen, and some of these may resonate more with you than others, we've seen a lack of community representation. So we've got community trustees on the board of the trusts. We see independent trustees, but in terms of the actual community and actual community input into projects, programs, conceptualization of programs, determining the strategy and the vision of the trusts, that has been something that's come to the fore, a lack of that. Also, the lack of trust or limited trustee engagement with the IPP board. So if we see the trustees as the voice of the community ownership, having very little part of that voice being echoed in the boardrooms of the IPPs. We've also seen, and I'm just picking up a few of the key things, we've also seen that in terms of regulations, processes, policies, for example, a simple procurement policy or a remuneration policy for trustees or a travel reimbursement policy, many of the trusts are doing that themselves from scratch. There isn't a standardized suite of tools that trusts can draw from, which just makes running of a trust and getting started so much easier. So there's a lack of that. Then under capacity, we're seeing that there's different types of capacities that trusts have asked for, trustees have asked for to be supported in. So project management and organizational management and trust management is the first one. And then besides the running of the trust, there's also managing of ourselves, of our relationships with each other, communication. So either amongst community trustees, between community trustees and independent trustees, trustees and the community. And then also, I think, this is what Nomfundo, for those of you who have listened to Nomfundo speak, a lot of what Nomfundo talks about, which is the trauma, the conversations we have with ourselves, having support in being able to have those conversations and being able to process some of the issues that we are finding. I'm going to go very quickly through the rest. So there's financial, fund and project and budget management. So not only how much we're spending on our projects, but also how much money we're putting away so that there's a continuous and a long-term dividend and income stream. Then under vision and strategy, support with actually the long-term strategy rather than the 1 to 3 year plans. And then having an inclusive strategy that includes community and other development partners. And then having a strategy as well that doesn't only look at how are you going to spend your money on projects, but looks at all the other things that I've just mentioned now under governance, under capacity, under impactful delivery. One of the things, for example, that could be in a strategy under impactful delivery is how do we develop more local implementers? How do we not only just have implementation agents that are coming from the big towns, but how do we support local organizations, consultants, NGOs to be able to be those implementers? Some more things under impactful delivery is having performance indicators, having a theory of change, having a monitoring and evaluation framework, and then making sure that those performance indicators are what the community sees as success, not only what the trustee or the trust administrator sees as success. And then finally, one of the issues under impactful delivery that trusts have brought to us is how do we make sure how do they make sure and how do we support in terms of having cost-effective and efficient programs that make the monies that the trust have stretch much further in terms of impact? So those are some of the insights that we've received during our working on the Trust Matters project. And then we also had more learnings at the learning event. Many of you would have been at the learning event in February, the beginning of February in Johannesburg. It was a 2-day learning event, and it was really amazing because we were able to do so many things and so many different things. So one of the things that we set out to do was to be able to strengthen the network and the quality of relationships amongst trustees from different trusts across the country, but also with the other people in the room, the IPPs, the financiers, other NGOs, potential trust administrators or implementing agents. And then also celebrating and learning from what some of the trusts and NGOs have already achieved so that we're able to share that knowledge. And that takes me to the third bullet point, is to facilitate that sharing of knowledge, sharing of tools, sharing of insights. This is what the learning event was about in February. We have over 150 people attending, and we had more people knocking on the door wanting to attend. So it was really absolutely incredible. And as I said, it was not only for trusts, it was not only for trustees. There was a wide range of people and of organizations who attended the learning event and have offered support to the whole concept and construct of community ownership to make sure that we're able to achieve those ideals that we speak about in the video that you've just heard. The event was also structured according to the Trust Maturity Framework. So it was over 2 days, and that was morning and afternoon sessions. And those sessions, so we almost had like 4 sessions. And those sessions were organized in terms of the 4 pillars of the Trust Maturity Framework. And then we also focused some of the sessions on some deep learning. So we had some of the afternoon sessions, for example, doing some deep learning and some case studies. And then we can go on to the next slide. And I think this is the unique thing about the learning event, that it wasn't just a conference. You know, we weren't just having people on the stage talking and the participants listening. It was about really active, everyone was actively engaged. I think for those of you who were there, you'll remember that there was a lot of interaction. We had panel discussions, we had fireside chats, But then after that, we had a lot of discussion at the tables, a lot of question and answers to the panelists, but then also discussion at the tables themselves. And then in the breakaway rooms in the afternoons, we had the deep dive sessions. And then one of the very interesting things that we had was also that I was part of was the 4D mapping, was being able to understand in a complex system with lots of role players, if we had to kind of yeah, what we try to do is we try to replicate what community interaction would be around a specific topic and how different people play different roles. I think that was really very, very interesting and quite enlightening. Then we also had coaching sessions and a case clinic, and then we used artwork. We used clay, we had drawings, we had cartoons, and the cartoons were absolutely fascinating. So I think all in all, it was really amazing. The 2 years of the Trust Matters program that culminated then in a learning event where we were able to share with each other what came out of Trust Matters, but also share amongst us. So where we are right now, we've now moved into, from everything that we've learned, we've now moved into responding to the call for support, supporting community trusts for optimal delivery. And we have already started developing some resources. And I'm going to talk to you about that a little bit later on. But first, I want to hand over to my colleague Ephraim, who's going to tell you more about the self-assessment tool. And then I'll come back and I'll talk to you about the resource development. Over to you, Ephraim.
Thank you so much, Yumna, and good morning to everyone. My apologies. I'm one person who doesn't like speaking behind the curtain, but my camera just decided to switch off on its own. I was using it earlier. I don't know whether it's an issue with Zoom or what, but it has decided to disappoint me. But I'm not going to disappoint you. I'm going to go through our trust maturity self-assessment tool. For those who were at the learning event, we had a breakaway session where we engaged some of your colleagues or some of the attendees here who attended that breakaway session, and from this, I'm sure they're able to see that we are actually. They're able to see that we are actually doing a follow-up to that session. But for those who are encountering this tool for the first time, let's take it as an introduction to the self-assessment tool, the one that we call the Trust Maturity Self-Assessment Tool. Okay, so basically, what are we going to look at? We are going to look at why this self-assessment tool matters to trust. We are going to look at how we developed the self-assessment tool, and we are also going to look at the structure of the self-assessment toolkit utilizing the TMF framework, which Yumna has already alluded to. We are also going to look at the toolkit completion trial. We are going to do a trial run where we are going to select some questions that we are going to complete within the tool itself, just to get an understanding of what the tool is. And then we are going to also have, time permitting, a reflection discussion after the trial run, which will lead to our question and answer session. So just going forward, what is the objective of this exercise? We want to understand the purpose and the structure of the community trust self-assessment tool. We also want to learn how to use the tool to identify gaps and strengthen trust operations, because we are saying the tool is a working tool and it's not written on stone. We are still improving it, and as we complete it, as we use it, we are going to identify gaps. We are going to improve it, and as we go. We also want to reflect on how the tool can be used to enhance trust effectiveness and impact. All right, moving forward. The first question is why the self-assessment? Why this self-assessment tool, or why self-assessment? Right, the tool will help trust to support community trust. It will help support community trust in aligning with the REIPP requirements and improving strategic decision-making using a structured approach. That is the why number one. The why number two, we want to ensure alignment with community needs and regulatory requirements amongst our trusts. Number three, it identifies strengths and areas for improvement without judgment. As we are going to see throughout my presentation, I will be mentioning that this is not an assessment, or this is not to judge, but it is meant for your maturity or for your growth. The assessment is to promote transparent accountability and continuous improvement. It also supports long-term sustainability and impact. And lastly, it provides a framework for continuous learning and adaptation. How did we develop this tool? The self-assessment tool is based on Inspire's Trust Maturity Framework. What is this Trust Maturity Framework? The Trust Maturity Framework provides a holistic view of trust operations. And it is based on the 4 pillars that Yumna has already gone through. I'm not going to expand on the 4 pillars because I believe Yumna has done justice to these 4 pillars. Those 4 pillars include governance, vision and strategy, impactful delivery, and a capacity. Number 2, the tool is informed by best practices. That is, it draws on global best practices in trust management, community development, and organizational assessment. It also aligns with international standards for transparency, accountability, and sustainability, utilizing principles from World Health Organization, GROWALD, and Bridgespan assessments. So far, we have piloted with community trust. That is, we have got community trust that have gone through the tool and completed the tool as a way of measuring the usability of the tool. So we have tested with trust under the REIPP to ensure relevance and practicability. Feedback from pilot users was also incorporated to refine the tool. But like I say, as I said, this was not the end of the refining. We need to continuously refine the tool, especially to align with the South African environment. We designed the tool for continuous improvement. That is, it encourages trust to reflect, learn, and grow over time. And it also provides a structured approach to identifying strengths and areas of development. So that's how we develop the tool, in short or in summary. Who should complete the self-assessment tool? So in this case, we are basically asking who is responsible for, within the trust or within the trust organization, who is responsible for completing this tool. So we are saying the self-assessment tool should be completed by individuals with a deep understanding of the trust operations. We hope you can complete it collaboratively. That is, when you are saying collaboratively, we are looking at individuals like the trustees, the trust management staff, community representatives, especially those who are actively engaged in the trust activities, key stakeholders such as members of the independent power producers who can provide insights into the governance and strategic alignment with the REIPP. If necessary, external consultants and facilitators can be engaged to ensure impartiality and objectivity in completing the assessment tool. So in this case, what we are saying is that where you find that impartiality might be a problem with the people who are supposed to complete the tool, it is possible to engage an external consultant for you to be able to have an assessment that is that is impartial. So as you are going to see in our demonstration or with the assessment tool itself, as you engage with the assessment tool itself, the tool can be completed in different sessions. You are going to download the tool, complete a session that you are able to complete, and then the other session you can pass it on to any stakeholder who is able to to complete the that part of the tool. So it's not a tool that you complete in one session. You are able to do that over a period of time as you gather all the information to ensure that you have got as accurate information as possible as you are completing this tool. So there is no pressure in one person completing the tool, or there is no pressure in hurrying to complete the tool within one sitting. You are able to do that in different sessions because you are able to download and save it in your documents and complete it as information becomes available. Okay. Okay, I think the heading here, there is not the correct heading, but the structure of the tool, this speaks to the structure of the tool. The tool is designed to help communities to assess governance, financial sustainability, stakeholder engagement, and operational effectiveness. So basically, it is embedded in Excel with 7 sheets, consisting of the first sheet, with, which is the introductory sheet with all the information and the instructions that you need for you to understand, especially on how to complete the tool. Then the second one, also the second sheet on Excel, will look at the trust profile. That is the profile information for the trust that will be completing that tool. Then from there, now we have the next 4 sheets that are aligned to the 4 pillars. That is number 3, governance, number 4, vision and strategy, number 5, impactful delivery, and number 6, capacity. Then the last part of the tool, we have got sheet number 7, which has got the summary sheet, which actually will give you a summary of the scoring based on how you have completed the assessment tool. We have got a level-based scoring, which is from 1 to 4, with descriptions for each level. And then there is also within each column, as you can see from this example that I've attached here, for pillar number 1, governance, you have got the first column there that is empty, which is the scoring. And then you've got this second column after scoring, you have got the not applicable, is where in case the element that is being assessed is not applicable to your organization, you have got that opportunity to say not applicable. Okay. And then after that, you have got a target for next year. So like I was saying, this is not to judge, or you don't need to put yourself under pressure to say we need to get a higher score at all costs. The issue is about you identifying where you need to improve. So if you have got areas that you need to improve, you can put them under your targets to say by next year we are targeting to have reached this level, so that when you are doing the assessment again for next year, you are able to also link to the previous assessment to say, have we managed to reach the target that we set for this year? And then lastly, on the last column, we have the comment section, where you are able to put comments that are linked to whatever you would have completed on the other sections, on the other columns there. Then you can put comments that you will be able to to go back to and say, okay, this was the status when we completed this assessment tool the previous year. Okay, have we managed to solve all the comments that we had gathered here? So this is just an illustration of one of the pillars, which is governance, how this assessment tool will look like as we are completing it. Like I said, we are going to have a trial run where we are going to look at some of these elements and complete maybe one or two to see how it comes out. Okay, how to use the tool. So like the first, the tool will be on the Inspire website. So the first task is for you to download the tool and save it into your PC or into your system. You can share the tool with your colleagues. And then once you have shared the tool with your colleagues, that is if you have got a SharePoint within your organization, then you can start the filling out of the tool. But before you do the filling out of the tool, understand the sections and the sheets as much as possible. There is no rush in completing the tool. What is important is for us to first understand what the tool entails and what is required for each section that you are going to complete. That is, read carefully the questions and level descriptions carefully before you decide to choose, okay, this is the level where we are. Understand the question and the levels descriptions that are given in the tool. And then one important thing is for us to answer honestly and collaboratively. That's why we always encourage that it is completed by several individuals or several stakeholders within the organization to ensure that there is that collaboratively completing of the tool. And there is also some kind of checking from other colleagues whether what the person who completed the tool would have said it does really align with what is within the organization. And then record scores, set targets, and add comments, as I explained in the previous slide. Then complete all sections and submit to Inspire. And then as an organization, have your internal review of the results and develop the action plan. Okay, let me just go back and say submitting to Inspire does not mean that Inspire is going to be the referee or is going to be judging you or not. The important part here is the organization being able to review the results and develop an action plan. Remember, I said this is not a test. This is not to judge anyone. This is for the organization's maturity. So once you have got your results at the end of the of completing the tool, then the important thing is for the organization itself to go back and say, okay, this is what we have. What is the action plan based on the results? So moving on to the next slide. Remember, it's about growth, not judgment. So when you're completing this, remember, it's not for you to submit to someone to come and say, oh, so you don't have this in your organization, or you are lacking in this one, in this area of your trust. But what is important is for you to understand your growth within your trust organization. Where are you and where would you want to be? So like I said before, it's about growth, not judgment. All right, I think it's jumping. Let me just go back a little bit. Okay. This is an extract of the of sheet number 7, the last sheet, which is the detailed scores per pillar and per subcategory. So once we have completed all the pillars, the 4 pillars, that is the governance, the vision and strategy, impact delivery, and the capacity, you'll find that on sheet number 7, you'll find these scores automatically appearing. these scores automatically appearing, and also an overall average score. That will be the overall average score for the what? For the organization. For example, for this organization, remember we said the score is from 1 to 4. So for this organization is 3.60, which means they're almost reaching the level 4. I'm going to explain what these levels mean, or what they entail. I'm not sure whether it's the next slide or the slide after, but we are going to explain. And also we have this graphic representation of the trust health mapping. As we improve, you find that this health mapping will also show those improvements. This is just a graphic a graphic representation of these scores here that you are seeing here, just for a quick view to say, okay, which areas are lacking. So as you can see here, you have got organizational management, which is still a little bit lacking in this organization. So now we can say, okay, we are lacking organizational management. What actions do we need to take for us to move this one outwards with the rest of the graph? Okay, and then here is the interpretation of our scoring. Remember, we said our scoring ranges from 1 to 4, with 1 representing initial. Yes, we would expect a trust organization that is in its implementation phase, or which is just starting. It might get a score of 1, but like we said, you don't judge yourself just because you got a 1. Getting a 1 doesn't mean that you are failing. This is the level where you are in your growth. No one starts growing from 4. You start growing from a lower level going upwards. So a level 1 doesn't mean that you are failing. All it means that there are still areas that you need to work on for you to reach level 2 or level 3 or 4. So with level 1, which is initial, we're saying the organization needs significant improvement. And then the trust is at an early stage and has significant gaps in this area. There are either limited structures in place or they are ineffective. Immediate action is needed to build capacity and address these weaknesses. Number 2, if your score after completing the tool falls in the level 2 or score 2 comma something or 2 point something, we are saying you are still developing. Some progress, but needs strengthening. Yes, there has been some progress in the development of the trust, but there is still need for strengthening. So we are saying the trust has some structures and processes in place, but lacks full implementation, consistency, and effectiveness. There are clear areas of improvement and additional support or refinement that is needed within the trust. A level 3 scoring shows that the trust is maturing, meaning that it is functioning well, but can be optimized. The trust has well-defined and structured practices in this area. However, there's room for refinement and optimization to ensure long-term sustainability and greater efficiency. And lastly, a level 4 scoring means as a trust you are leading. You are leading in practice. The trust is excelling in this area with strong, well-established processes that align with best practices. It demonstrates sustainability, impact, and effectiveness, serving as a model for other trusts. So basically what we are saying, our aim as trusts is that we are all aiming to get to level 4, but we don't get to level 4 by completing the tool dishonestly. Be honest with yourself, because remember, at the end of the day, if you get to level 4, whilst your systems are not at the level 4, it means you are going to encounter problems in future. So what is important is that first thing, for the first time, even for the second time or third time, but specifically for the first time, you need to ensure that there is honest in completing the tool so that you are able to say, definitely our trust is at level 2. Then on your comments and on your targets, you can put targets to say, okay, next year we are targeting level 3. And for us to target level 3, what actions do we need to take? You don't have to reach level 4 within a year. Yes, you can if you have all the resources in place, or if you're able to, you can do that. But like I said, you can do that in stages, in a process of maturing, by following your scoring at the end of each assessment. Okay, the scoring. Let me say, please don't worry about the scoring. Everything is done. The mathematics is already within the system. So all you need to do is to complete. And once you have completed the tool, the scoring will appear in the last sheet, which is sheet 7, which will show you the level of your maturity. So don't worry, the tool does all the maths for you. There is no mathematics that you are going to do in the tool. Okay. I'm going to share the tool from my side. And if the other panelists allow me, then we can go through the completion of the tool.
Yes, Ephraim, you may share your slides.
Okay. Thank you so much. Please tell me if I'm sharing.
Yes, we are seeing the tool.
All right. Okay, let me go to the, okay. So we do have the first sheet, which I said is the introductory sheet. So with the introductory sheet, you've got the name of the trust, where you are going to complete your name as a trust, and then date of submission, the date that you are going to complete this and submit to Inspire. And then under these tables here, you have got respondent's name, respondent's title, section, and then the sections completed, and then the contact of that respondent. Remember, we say the tool, ideally the tool should be completed by a number of stakeholders within the trust. So what we are saying is that each person who is going to complete the tool, or who is going to participate in the completion of the tool, they are going to put down their details here, so that we are able to, if there is anything that needs to a follow-up, especially on the section, on a certain section, we are able to say, okay, this is Mr. Bongani who completed this section. So we are able to also go back and engage Mr. Bongani to ensure that there is a follow-up on anything that needs a follow-up. Then we've got the introduction, which speaks about the assessment tool itself, the objectives of the assessment tool, who should complete the assessment tool, and then the confidentiality of the assessment tool. And then we've got instructions, which I said, please take your time, read through the instructions so that you are able to complete this as accurately as possible. I'm not going to go through the instructions. I'm going to save you time in going through the instructions, but what I will just plead with everyone who is going to interact with the tool, please make sure you go through the instructions before proceeding to the next sheet, which is the trust profile. In the trust profile sheet, we've got the name of the trust, the year it was established, the name of the IPP or the renewable energy project the trust has ownership in, and then you've got the trust shareholding percentage. Then you've got the location of trust offices. Whilst maybe you find that the trust is operating in DR, it's possible that you might find that the trust has got its offices in Cape Town. So if the offices are in Cape Town, yes, you mentioned that the offices are in Cape Town. And then also the primary location, which I said in this case, which is what? DR. If there are additional locations, for example, the trust also expands into Kimberley, then you can also add Kimberley here. And then we've got the beneficiary communities, the targeted beneficiaries. You list down the community that is benefiting from this trust, and then the province or the state, local municipalities, city, town, or village, and then the specific community groups. In this case, we are talking of either it's youth, women, elderly, and any other category that you might be serving specifically as a trust. And then if there's other that you need to specify, you can specify it here. And then we've got areas of impact, that is the development focus area. Here you say yes or no, where we are saying, are you operating in the education sector, skills development, social and community development, food security and agriculture? So your responses will be either be yes or no in all this. If you are not operating in any of these listed areas, yes, it's possible that you might be operating in multiple of these areas. That's why you say yes or no. You don't have to choose only one. If you are you might find that your trust is engaged in educational programs. It might be engaged in housing and living condition programs or in environmental programs. That's what you complete here as a yes. If you are not, then you complete as a no. If there is any area of development that you are involved in that is not listed here, please you go on the other and add that section, so that next time when we update the tool, we are also able to add that section to say, oh, there is this area of development that we had actually left out. And then on your right side of the tool, we are still under the trust profile. Then we've got questions that are related to the P1, Pillar 1, the governance, which talks about the trust ownership. So there are questions that are related to the trust ownership. Is the chairperson of the trust an independent trustee? How many trustees are appointed by the IPP on the board of trustees? Are the community trustees elected or appointed? So it's all about ownership. So you are free to answer here accordingly based on your trust. Then on the second pillar, vision and trust, what is the trust mission and vision statement? What role do the stakeholders, that is the community funders and others, play in the development of trust strategy? So these are the questions that have linked to the vision and strategy. And then we've got the impactful delivery. What is the trust operating model for delivery on its strategic objectives? Does the trust use any local suppliers in its programs? These are open-ended questions that you are able to answer on your own. And then pillar number 4 says, how does the trust manage its operational functions? In what year did the trust receive its first dividend? Again, with some of these, you find that there are options for you there are drop-down options where you can choose. For example, these questions say, what was the trust dividend the past financial year? Then you are able to select from these ranges here. So that is, some of these have got drop-down options. Some do not have, which means if you don't have a drop-down option, which means it's an open-ended question that you can fill in based on the information that you have for your trust. So this is the second sheet, which deals with the trust profile. Then once you are done with that, now we are going to the pillars 1, 2, 3, 4, where we are now in where the scoring comes in now. For example, I'm just going to quickly fill in the first two questions under governance, that is the founding documents and mandate. So first thing, when you talk of the mandate, you need to read through all these levels here so that you are able to say, okay, according to the descriptions of these levels here, our trust is according to the mandate. Okay, the level one says the trust mandate is unclear, vague, and not formally documented. Then you compare with what you have on the ground for your trust, and then you move on and say the mandate exists but lacks specificity, making it difficult to assess impact and alignment with community needs. Level 3, the mandate is well defined, outlining key goals, objectives, but lacks flexibility to adapt to changing needs. And then level 4 says the trust mandate is clearly articulated with specific goals and objectives aligned to the community needs while allowing adaptability to changing circumstances. Once you have gone through the levels and then you say, okay, according to this, our trust falls on level 3, then you come here and put your 3. And then now you can say for next year, what are we targeting? Then you say we are targeting level 4 and then comment. That's where now you are going to put in what you need to do for you to reach your target 4. Any comment that is linked to what you have completed there. So you come to the next, the next item is defining beneficiaries. The trust deed and legal document do not clearly define beneficiary community. Level 2, the beneficiary community. So you go through all these levels and then you say, okay, in our case, we are in level 2. And then you put your level 2 there. And then what is your target for next year? If you are saying we are targeting 4, you say also 4. But if you are saying we are targeting 3, we are targeting 3, then your comment there. As you go down through this the level, that this is this pillar under governance. So under governance, you have got founding documents and mandate. You have got the board composition and diversity. And then you have got the roles and responsibilities in governance, operations and processes, transparency and accountability. Then you are done with governance. Once you have reached that, then you go to pillar number 2, which is vision and strategy. You do the same thing. Before you even complete, go through the levels. Vision and mission. Go through the levels. The trust mission and vision is not written and not widely shared set of values govern the work. Then if it's your 1, then you say, in our organization, we are in level 1. What is our target? And your comments. You come to the next one, which falls under strategic planning and development, community needs assessment. No process for assessing community needs. Needs are assessed informally or sporadically. Level 3, level 4, you go through. So for example, I will say in this case, we are in level 2, needs are assessed informally and sporadically. And then you put your target, you say our target next year is to go to level 3, and then you put your comments. And then you go down pillar number 2, which has got mission and vision, strategic planning and development. And then you also have collaboration with other stakeholders and social licenses and community-minded. Once you have done that, you are done with pillar number 2. Then you go to pillar number 3, which is impact delivery. With impact delivery, you have got operating model, you have got program design and management, you have got program implementation and localization, and then you have got partnership and alliances, monitoring, evaluation, and learning. And then once you have done that, you are done. So for this one, I'm going to complete operating model, documented operating model. No defined operating model exists. An operating model exists, but lacks alignment with strategic objectives and scalability. The operating model is aligned and with strategic objectives and incorporates multiple approaches, e.g. program management, direct implementation, partnerships, and capacity building. So if your level, you're saying we are at level what? At level 3, then you put your 3, you put your target, and also your comment at the end. What about adaptability of operating model? You read through the levels again. And then if you are saying, in this case, we are at level what? At level 4, you put your 4 there. Then your target, if you've got your target, and your comments, if there are comments that you need to. But remember, the targets and comments, you are not forced to do that. But for your own management of your growth, they are important. But there are cases where you may not have comments to put in. Please don't feel pressure to put comments in every section that you are completing. So that will be your pillar number 3. You'll be done with your pillar number 3 once you have gone through all the levels. And then you go to your last pillar, which is capacity.
Ephraim, just to come in, could you please utilize the next 2 minutes? We do still want to explore the Q&A as well as the trust support matrix. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, with the pillar 4, which is capacity, we have got what? Human resources and policies. We have got training and development, organization management, financial and accounting capacity. We've got financial resources, and then the infrastructure. So once you fill in, for example, human resources plan, and in this case, you go through your levels, you say under your human resources plan, okay, you are saying we are level 1, you put your level 1, your targets and everything. And then the next one, job description requirements, there are no defined job description. If it's your level 1, you put your level 1, and then your targets and your comments. Then you go through all the levels, the sections not in this pillar. Once you are done to the maintenance of the infrastructure, then you are done with your 4 pillars. Then now you can turn on to what you can see from here. Already I have scores for those that I've already completed. Here are the section that I've completed. I completed human resources and policies. Our level is 1. Under pillar 3, we've got 3.50. And then under vision and strategy, we've got 1 and 2. And then under the pillar of governance, we've got 2.50. So once you have completed everything, like I showed you in the other slide, where in the PowerPoint slide, you will find everything will have been recorded here, including your average. We also have the description here that I showed you earlier of your scoring. And then also here is the map, the graphic that shows your level or your level, your trust health. You can see here we are almost at the center with a few going out because we didn't complete the whole tool. Once we complete the whole tool, then you see that kind of brown circular thing showing you how you have moved from the center going outwards, showing you the level of health of your trust. Okay, so basically this is the tool that we are going to be utilizing in our trust maturity self-assessment. Okay, and then I think I will stop sharing now, then we can go back to our slides. Avela.
Thank you so much, Ephraim, for sharing about the self-assessment tool. And as you have mentioned, that it's a tool for continuous improvement. As we progress into the projects, we will be moving into phases of completely or fully putting together the resources. So this tool is a continuous tool for improvement and will be bettered as we proceed and as we invite more community trusts to interact with the tool. Ephraim, just a few seconds. Do you want to come in there for like 30 seconds?
I think you have already mentioned, because this is what I just wanted to say. The tool is a practical resource for self-reflection and improvement, not for judging, not for testing anyone. It's for your internal improvement. And then secondly, collaboration and honesty is one critical element when completing the tool. Please don't feel rushed to complete the tool, or don't feel like you just need to complete the tool so that at least you have got something to show. We need the collaboration and honesty. And also there is continuous improvement. Continuous improvement is a journey, not a one-time event. So we do this as a journey, not as a one-time event. Okay, thank you so much, Avela. I think you can hand over to the next person.
Thank you. Thank you, Ephraim. I'll hand over to Yumna to take us through the trust support matrix and also on the next steps. With that being said, please also engage with the Q&A. I'm looking at the time. We can also type in some answers for other questions that might arise. We currently have one question, and Yumna will cover the question as she proceeds with the presentation. Over to you, Yumna.
Thank you very much, Avela, and thank you very much, Ephraim. I think that is an amazing tool that has been developed. Really, I think as Ephraim said, it's really an opportunity for you to learn as trusts about where the areas are for development. But I think also if those insights are made available to Inspire in an anonymous format, we are able to then see across the country and across the whole landscape of community trusts, we are able to see where some of the common areas of development are. So I'm going to go through with you now the resource development and support matrix that we are working on. And this is just from the insights that we've had that I spoke about earlier at the different interactions that we've had. So someone comes to tell us about A and someone else comes to tell us about B. And so then we respond with a resource for A and a resource for B. And of course, we do that because we see a lot of people talking about A and B. But when we have the insights from the tool, it will give us very specific, very targeted understandings of what's needed. And we'll be able to respond in a much more specific way to be able to improve the trust support ecosystem. So thank you very much, Ephraim, for taking us through that. And a little bit later, we'll also talk about how you can have more of an opportunity to go through the tool and get some support in completing the tool. But we'll share that with you a little bit later. For now, I just wanted to remind you of the insights that I spoke about earlier that's come through in terms of what the needs are and what the support needs are and what the challenges are. And now what I'd like to, in response to this, and you can see I've highlighted these insights according to the pillars of the Trust Maturity Framework: governance, capacity, vision and strategy, and impactful delivery. And on the next slide, you will then see our response in terms of our resource development. There we go. Thank you so much, Nicola. These are some of the immediate resources that we are starting to develop in response to those challenges. So in governance, for example, we already have the Trust Matters video. We've got the long version, and we've also got the shorter version that you just saw. That I think is quite valuable for a lot of people who don't understand, like a lot of funders who maybe don't understand why we're doing this. Why do we have community ownership as part of REIPP? These are some things to be able to explain that. And then also a trust deed template. We've seen many trusts with different trust deeds and gaps in some of the trust deeds with regard to, for example, PBO status, BE compliance, being able to invest in other assets and other income streams, those kinds of things. We are working currently with Norton Rose Foundation. You've met Candice Pillay, who's been doing pro bono work on behalf of Norton Rose for Inspire. She's been developing this template. I've just had a chat with her earlier this week. She's now doing some more work on this template with drafting notes, so we can see, you don't want this clause, maybe you want to change this clause for another clause. She gives you those options. So I think this is really valuable for if you want to change your trust deed, or for new trusts being set up by new project companies in new areas. We've got the template for that. I spoke earlier also about having some basic standard operating procedures and templates. We're working with Norton Rose on that as well. And then I think one of the days, I'm not sure if it was the Monday or the Tuesday or Wednesday, sorry, of the learning event, Candice went through her manual on trust governance. And we are working with Candice to turn this into very easy to digest publications, possibly even into videos or webinars. So that's under governance. And I will also answer Rudy's question as well. And actually, let me take a step back, because I'll continue around what the resources are under capacity, vision, and strategy, impactful delivery. But I'll take a quick break to answer Rudy's question. And Rudy, you have asked, if I can just go to that again, the trust maturity framework. And it's interesting, our word trust, both being Trust Matters Project as well as Trust Maturity Framework, is a play on the word trust. I mean, the Trust Maturity Framework, Rudy, actually means the Community Trust Maturity Framework. So how mature is the community trust? And that is what the self-assessment tool is also checking, is how mature is the community trust in terms of its development and its ability to be able to impact on development in the community. So but in that is also the trust that we have with each other. So and building trust with each other. So Rudy, the trust maturity framework is about community trust's maturity, but implicit in that is also the trust that we have with each other. And I think one of the resources that deals with that is actually under capacity. So under capacity, and it's the second box that I want to refer to, so I'm going to get to that right now. But the first box of resource is a lot of new trustees when they're inducted. You know, you've got to find someone to come in. Sometimes the trust administrator can't always do the induction. Someone is invited in, like a consultant, to do that induction. And that can be quite expensive for trusts. And what we'd like to do is to do some generic trust induction. So generic policies, generic operational procedures, do's and don'ts, fiduciary responsibilities that can apply to all trusts, that we'd like to put into an induction video. But then that allows the trust administrator to then look at some specific trust induction that can be done quite quickly and easily. But to your point, Rudy, around building trust, I think this is around what we spoke about earlier. Box 2 is trauma-informed leadership. So something we'd like to look at is perhaps some introduction to trauma-informed leadership. What does this mean? How do we start building trust by acknowledging trauma? And maybe have an introductory video so that so people can understand that, see what that means, and then possibly decide whether you want to take that to the next step and invite someone like Nomfundo to come and do some workshops with your trust. The third box is on refinancing. There was an excellent breakaway session on refinancing done by Masachaba and I think Infra Impact during the learning event. People were raving about it. And we'd like to possibly convert that into a webinar. Also, I think for the purpose not so much of the trustees, but for the community, explaining, and we did a little bit of that in the video, but explaining in a bit more detail how the trust gets its income. Where does this come from? So just a bit of a basic explanation so that communities understand when there's no wind, when there's problems, that probably impacts then on the money coming to the trust. And then the last one under that is the different types of trust fund investments. I'm going to pause there because I think I really would like more opportunity for question and answers. We can always come to a vision and strategy and impactful delivery later. But Avela, are there any specific questions that we have in the chat? Any further questions?
Not at the moment, Yumna. There were more, but they have been answered. Were related to the tool. Yeah. I think if anyone has a question related to this, can come forth now. Going once. Oh, maybe you can proceed, Yumna, then I'll let you when there's a question that's typed. Maybe people are still typing their questions. Thank you.
Okay, so I can come back to that, to this slide, but maybe what we, in the 8 minutes that we have left, actually now 7 minutes that we have left, let's go through the rest of the slides. And then we can always come back to the other one. Avela, did you want to speak to this?
Sure, I can, Yumna. So up next we'll be hosting workshops between July and September. Those are provisional months as well as provisional areas. So we welcome suggestions from community trustees, obviously while also catering for budget purposes. So those workshops, we call them self-assessment tool activation workshops, where we want to get the opportunity to directly interact with community trusts based on this trust maturity assessment tool, and also explore other areas for scalable capacity building while we go to our next phases of the project. So this is at a very draft stage, and we are still in the scoping phase to determine if we identify a few central areas where everyone can reach, or we then have one-on-ones, maybe online or something, but we will be hosting these workshops. Feel free to interact with Inspire for suggestions, especially in areas that exist in clusters where there's a lot of community trust in that area. Maybe you can approach us to say, we are in Katu, we are 9 trusts that are in the area, would love to have this self-assessment tool interaction, then we can see what we can do from our side. Yes, thank you, Yumna. Back to you.
Thank you, Avela. And I'm wondering whether we can maybe get a sense from the participants. So we've got, if you can put that slide up again, we've got Gleberga, we've got De Aar, and we've got Vredenburg. Would that be valuable, do you think, for those people who are on the chat? Do you think those are valuable? For example, is there enough of a cluster around De Aar, or would it be easier for travel purposes to make it in Kimberley? Does it need to be in Vredenburg, or should it be in Cape Town, or should it be in somewhere halfway up the West Coast? So I think those kinds of things would really help us, because we want to make sure that these activation workshops are accessible for as many trustees or trust administrators as possible, whoever's going to be working on the self-assessment tool. And then at these activation workshops, we also would like to, as we develop resource material, be able to share this with you and explain to you and navigate your way through the resource material that's available. So is it possible for people to speak, or can they only do it through the Q&A, Avela? Are they able to give feedback on the location for the workshops? And I'm also wondering if we could get some idea around dates. We're looking at July, August, September. Do these dates work generally in your calendar? Are there some dates that would be better than others?
Yumna, on the speaking part, I think the host would invite a specific person that needs to speak. But I see on the chat, Bongani Nzele has a question for you. It reads as follows. I had Yumna stating that we share the tool anonymously with Inspire. To be clear, this is not compulsory.
Not that I know of. Ephraim can also come in there. It would not be compulsory. You could utilize the tool for your own benefit, but it would really help Inspire to be able to see how we can assist just broadly. But maybe Ephraim, do you want to answer that question specifically?
Maybe I'll just add to what you refer to. But I know sometimes when we talk of submitting to Inspire, that's where maybe the questions come in. Actually, Inspire would want to assist for those who would really require that kind of assistance in capacity building. So the purpose for you to submit to Inspire is for Inspire to help you identify areas that you can quickly improve for you to improve your maturity. So it's not for someone to judge or to send to a particular office that will be investigating or looking at you, but this tool is for your self maturity. So yeah, it's not going to be compulsory to send to Inspire, but it will be advisable to send to Inspire so that if there are any challenges, Inspire can also come in to assist.
Thank you, Ephraim. Thank you very much. And I see also in the responses with regard to location, Zitulele has said that a July session in Gqeberha will be more than welcome. So that's great. Thank you for that feedback. Anyone who is operating in Northern Cape who can give us a sense of whether we should have the workshop in De Aar or whether we should have it in Kimberley or in Uppington?
There is a comment for Northern Cape. Wouldn't Kimberley be a central?
Northern, yes, absolutely. Like Northern Cape, Kimberley would be more central. My question is just, I suppose, whether it would be accessible enough for everyone. Nicola, I don't know if you've seen from the poll, if we've got any feedback on Northern Cape.
Yes, so we have 2 people have voted for De Aar and 5 people have voted for Gqeberha. No one for Vredenburg.
Okay. So I suppose what we should do is have a different poll, but maybe we're running out of time, is have a different poll to say for Northern Cape, whether to have De Aar or to have Kimberley. But yeah.
Sure, I can.
Yeah, thank you, Yumna. And yeah, I think maybe let's work on the back end to also approach the attendees to find out more preferred dates and times. I'm also seeing that Uppington is the most central and accessible. So I feel each person is pulling to their sides. I would do the same. With that being said, we are just a minute over time, and thank you guys for joining us. And thank you, Yumna and Ephraim, for presenting to us. Thank you, Nicola, for handling the tech, and also my colleagues for interacting in the comments, making sure that everything is good. Should you have any more questions, or you want to raise some concerns or share more information, please feel free to email me. Yes, I believe I did send the invites to some people. If not, my email is avela@inspireexcellence.net. Yes, and sign up for a newsletter to stay updated, and look out in our LinkedIn page on the next steps related to this project. And with that being said, thank you everyone, and goodbye.